All right, everybody, get ready, because today we're going to try to get our heads around this whole thing with nested interrupts, on RISC-V microcontrollers.
Really diving deep into how these, what are they, tiny chips, how they handle, well, I like to think of it as a symphony of urgency.
Oh, I like that. A symphony of urgency. That's good.
Yeah.
And we know you're no stranger to this whole world of microcontrollers, so we're going to skip all that 101 stuff and jump right into this nuanced dance of nested interrupts.
Music to my ears.
All right, so the roadmap for this deep dive is this technical document all about advanced interrupt techniques, specifically for RISC-V microcontrollers. And it's by this guy, Lance Harvey, who really seems to know his stuff.
And not just an engineer, he's a recruiter, too. So
Yeah.
he's kind of uniquely positioned to be speaking about this, wouldn't you say?
Well, absolutely. So for our listeners out there, imagine this. You're in this high-stakes situation. Maybe you're a pilot landing a plane, and you're laser focused on this one critical task, and then boom, multiple alerts just go off all at the same time. You need to respond like right now, but you got to prioritize right which one needs your attention first. That's essentially what these tiny chips are dealing with constantly, only they're doing it at like lightning speed.
Exactly, exactly. And the interrupt vector table, or IVT, that's their secret weapon.
Okay, the IVT. So it's like their own little sophisticated to-do list or something.
More like a priority list on steroids, you know? It's the microcontroller's way of saying, like, hold on, everyone, I've got a system for this. And it ensures that those most critical tasks, those are handled first, prevents, potential disasters. And chapters 2 and 5 in Harvey's document, they go into some really fascinating detail about how that IVT manages this whole intricate dance.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But can you give us an example, something concrete, of the IVT in action, like something that shows how important this is in a real-world scenario,
Yeah.
but specifically on a RISC-V microcontroller?
Okay, so picture this. You've got an RSCD chip and it's controlling a critical system. Like, let's say a medical device that's monitoring a patient's vital signs. Now imagine there's a sudden spike in the patient's heart rate. That's a high priority interrupt right there. Needs attention now.
Okay, yeah, that's critical for sure.
Absolutely, but at the same time, there's a low priority request to update the display with the current time, right? Well, the IVT steps in and says, hold on, heart rate trumps time display right now. The microcontroller prioritizes, makes sure that the medical device is responding to, the potentially life-threatening situation.
Smells like a triage system for the microcontroller.
Exactly, exactly. And what's amazing is that this whole process, all this decision-making based on urgency, happens in a space smaller than your fingernail. Pretty remarkable when you think about how much sophistication is packed into these tiny chips.
It really is.
Yeah.
But with all of this juggling, with all these interruptions flying around, I imagine things could get a little messy, right? Like,
Yeah.
what happens when this intricate dance, of nested interrupts? What happens when it goes wrong? What are the challenges that can pop up in this microscopic world?
Oh, that's a great question. There are a couple of major challenges that Harvey highlights in his document. They go by the names of priority inversion and deadlock.
Okay, priority inversion and deadlock. Those sound like the titles of sci-fi thriller novels, honestly. But seriously, what do those actually mean in the context of microcontrollers?
All right, so let's start with priority inversion. Okay, picture this. You're trying to send this really urgent message on your phone, right? But you can't, you're blocked because there's this low priority app update and it's hogging all the processing power.
Ugh. Yeah, I've been there. The worst.
Right, well, that's priority inversion in a nutshell. And in a microcontroller, what this could mean is that, the crucial sensor reading, that gets delayed. And it's because a less important task is using up all the valuable processing time.
So it's not just an annoyance then. It can have some serious consequences.
Absolutely. Now, deadlock's even trickier. It's like two people trying to walk through a door simultaneously, but neither one will budge.
A microcontroller stand-up.
Exactly. And in a microcontroller, this might happen when two tasks are each waiting for the other one to release a resource, like memory access or control of a peripheral. And because they're both just stuck waiting, nothing happens. The whole system freezes. And chapter 4 of Harvey's paper, he really digs into some real-world examples of how these issues can pop up.
Okay, so we are getting into some seriously complex territory here. But before we dive into the solutions for these challenges, I just want to make sure our listeners are still with us.
Of course.
So for those of you listening, you might be wondering, like, why should I care about any of this? Why are we spending a whole, deep dive on these I don't know, kind of obscure concepts, nested interrupts, And priority inversions, like, why does it matter?
It matters because these concepts, as obscure as they may seem, they underpin the functionality of, well, countless devices that we rely on every single day. I mean, from our smartphones, our laptops, to medical equipment, to self-driving cars. I mean, it's everything. Nested interrupts, they're this invisible force, and they're making sure that those devices are responding to our commands, to the world around them, in a timely and efficient manner.
It's like we're peeking behind the curtain of all of the technological wizardry that we just take for granted.
Exactly. And understanding these concepts, even at a high level, it can give you a much deeper appreciation for the complexity, the ingenuity that's behind the, well, the seemingly simple actions that our devices perform every second of every day.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
It's like learning about the intricate workings of a watch,
Yeah.
and suddenly this simple act of just checking the time, it becomes so much more fascinating.
Exactly, exactly. And just like the well-crafted watch, a well-designed microcontroller,
Yeah.
with its ability to handle nested interrupts effectively, well, that's a testament to the skill and ingenuity of the engineers who created it.
It sounds like these engineers are facing quite a challenge, especially when you factor in the increasing complexity of modern devices, right? And the demand for faster, more efficient processing.
Absolutely. And that's where the real artistry comes in, finding elegant solutions to complex problems, but within the constraints of limited resources.
Okay, so we've talked about the what and the why of nested interrupts. Now let's get into the how. What are some of the ingenious solutions that engineers have come up with to address these challenges of priority inversion and deadlock?
Well, one solution for priority inversion is this clever technique called priority inheritance. Think of it like this. Well, one solution for priority inversion is this clever technique called priority inheritance. Think of it like this. You're waiting in line for an important meeting, but the person at the front is stuck on a call.
Okay, yeah, I can see where this is going.
Right. They're blocking everyone behind them, even though their call might not be as urgent as the meeting. With priority inheritance, it's as if the person on the call temporarily gets the same urgency level as the meeting. Just for the duration of their call, they finish up quickly, everyone moves forward, no more priority inversion.
Ah, so the low priority task borrows the importance of the high priority task it's blocking. That's clever. Harvey mentions that in chapter 4, right?
Exactly. It's like a temporary promotion for a task that's holding back the VIP. Now, dealing with deadlock is a different beast. One approach is interrupt masking.
Interrupt masking. Is that like hitting the do not disturb button on your phone?
You got it. It's all about strategic silence. Imagine you're working on a complex equation. You might put on noise-canceling headphones to block out distractions. In a microcontroller, interrupt masking lets you temporarily ignore lower priority interrupts while you focus on a critical task.
So it's a way of streamlining the microcontroller's focus, ensuring that important tasks get the attention they deserve without being bogged down by less urgent interruptions.
Precisely. And there's another technique called dynamic allocation, which is like having a super efficient air traffic controller. Instead of fixed flight paths, the controller constantly adjusts the priority of incoming and outgoing planes, making sure everything flows smoothly, even with a constant stream of traffic.
Dynamic allocation. So it's about flexibility and adaptation, responding to the ever-changing demands placed on the microcontroller.
Exactly. It's like a juggling act, where the microcontroller dynamically assigns and reassigns interrupt priorities, ensuring that things keep moving smoothly, even in the face of unexpected events.
It's fascinating to think about these tiny chips performing such complex operations, all in the blink of an eye. And as you mentioned earlier, this isn't just theoretical. It has real-world implications. In Chapter 6, Harvey gets into some specifics about these real-world applications, doesn't he?
He does, and it's a great reminder of why understanding nested interrupts matters. Think about it. The reliability of your car's anti-lock braking system, the precision of a robotic arm in a manufacturing plant, the accuracy of a medical sensor, these all depend on flawless interrupt handling.
It's like that saying, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. These tiny chips, with their ability to manage a symphony of urgency, are essential components in countless systems we rely on every day.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And as we move towards a future of increasingly interconnected and intelligent devices, the role of nested interrupts will only become more critical.
Speaking of the future, what are your thoughts on the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead in the world of nested interrupts?
That's a great question, and it's something that Harvey touches on in Chapter 8 of his document, Impact of Emerging Technologies. As we demand more from our devices, more speed, more functionality, longer battery life, engineers are constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible with nested interrupt handling.
It seems like they're facing a delicate balancing act, squeezing every ounce of performance out of these tiny chips, while also ensuring they can handle the ever-increasing complexity of our technological demands.
Exactly. One area of active research is optimizing interrupt handling to minimize power consumption. Think about it. Every time an interrupt occurs, it takes a small amount of energy to process it.
So if you can make that process more efficient, you can significantly improve battery life.
Precisely. And in a world of mobile devices, that's a huge deal.
It's incredible to think that these microscopic optimizations can have such a tangible impact on our everyday lives. What other innovations are on the horizon in the world of nested interrupts?
Well, another exciting area is the development of more intelligent interrupt controllers. These are like the conductors of the symphony, if you will, dynamically adjusting priorities and power consumption based on the system's current needs.
So instead of a static, pre-programmed system, it becomes more adaptive and responsive to the demands of the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine a microcontroller in a self-driving car. As the car encounters different driving conditions, heavy traffic, open highway, inclement weather, the interrupt controller could dynamically adjust priorities to ensure optimal performance and safety.
So it's about creating systems that can think on their feet, so to speak, adapting to changing circumstances and making decisions in real time.
Precisely. And that level of intelligence and adaptability is only going to become more important as we enter an era of increasingly sophisticated and interconnected devices.
It's mind-boggling to think about the level of complexity that goes into designing these systems.
Yeah.
It takes a special kind of engineer to navigate the world of nested interrupts and create solutions that are both elegant and efficient.
It certainly does. And speaking of talented engineers, we'd be remiss not to mention our source for this deep dive, Lance Harvey. His unique perspective as both an engineer and a recruiter gives him incredible insight into the challenges and rewards of this field.
It's one thing to understand the technical intricacies of nested interrupts, but it's another thing entirely to be able to identify and nurture the talent needed to push the boundaries of this field even further.
Absolutely. And that brings us to an important question for our listeners. Have we sparked your curiosity about the world of embedded systems and the magic of nested interrupts?
We've thrown a lot of information your way today, but we hope you found it as fascinating as we do. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to leave with?
I think the most important thing to remember is that even the most mundane technologies we interact with every day, our phones, our cars, our appliances, are often powered by incredibly complex systems working tirelessly behind the scenes.
It's really amazing when you think about it, all that hidden complexity, just so we can go about our modern lives.
Yeah, and it makes you think as our devices, all our devices get even more, sophisticated, the need for skilled engineers, people who really get these systems, it's only going to get, well, more important, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of those skilled engineers, Lance Harvey, who we've been talking about, he seems to really embody that intersection of the expertise, but also the need to bring up the next generation. He's not just, writing about nested interrupts.
Yeah.
He's out there finding the people who are going to shape this field.
It's true. It's a good reminder that this stuff, technology, it doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It's all about human ingenuity. It's about collaboration.
Well said. Well said. So for our listeners, who I hope are now, just as captivated by nested interrupts as we are, what's the key takeaway, the one thing you really want them to walk away with?
I think the most important thing to remember is that, well, even the simplest things, the technologies we use every day without even thinking, our phones, cars, even appliances, they're often powered by these incredibly complex systems just working tirelessly behind the scenes.
It really is like peeling back the layers of an onion or a silicon chip, I guess, in this case.
Yeah.
And you discover this whole world of what's the word? Ingenuity, complexity.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe someone listening right now, this was the spark, this got them curious about this world.
Maybe there's a future embedded systems engineer out there, someone who's ready to tame some tiny chaos, as we were saying. Well, on that note, I think that's a wrap for us. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world, I would say, of nested interrupts. And until next time, keep exploring all the hidden wonders of the technology that surrounds us.
Cheers to